Thanks so much for joining us here at 11. I'm John Adams. Our top story, at least 3 people are dead and 7 more injured after a shooting in Idaho. Officials say it began inside of an In-N-Out restaurant in Twin Falls. That's roughly 130 miles southeast of Boise. This video shows people running from the restaurant after shots were fired. Police say the shooter is dead and there is no ongoing threat to the community.
The suspected shooter in this incident is deceased. He was nearby on the scene there, and we are working to try to ascertain his identity and the motivations behind that. We'll be able to figure that out in the next coming days.
It's still unclear how many people were injured. The police chief says the federal government will help with the investigation. In other national headlines, President Donald Trump says he's holding off on new strikes on Iran, claiming Middle East allies have reached an outline of a deal to end the war. On social media, the president claimed the deal would include a, quote, immediate, complete, and total reopening of the Strait of Hormuz. He also claimed it would end Iran's nuclear threat. He says the pause on new strikes is subject to quickly closing the deal, and Israel has agreed to join the U.S. in that commitment. Iran did not offer an immediate comment on the president's announcement. Well, it was a contentious Friday night in and around Moda Center as controversy surrounded Indiana Fever's Sophie Cunningham and her comments made about trans athletes. Tonight, we're hearing from a Fire season ticket holder who says they were spit on and had a slur yelled at them during the game.
Until Friday night, Shauna Gordon and their wife enjoyed every second of being a Portland Fire season ticket holder.
We knew going into this game that there was a lot of charged energy, specifically around Sophie Cunningham's comments.
Before the game, the couple took their usual seats in Section 107, excited to see the Fire take on the Indiana Fever. Gordon says they made a personal choice not to stand during the national anthem, something they do every game. Gordon tells us on this night, a man sitting behind them saw that and started yelling.
He says, "Stand up." And I'm like, obviously not going to stand up because some man is telling me to do so. And then I start feeling something in the back of my neck. And I'm like, okay, what? And I turn and I look over at him and he goes, "Yeah, stand up, stand up."
A few moments later, flames were shot from near the basket as part of pregame introductions. That's when Gordon tells us the man said this.
And at that point, that's when he yelled, "Set trans on fire."
Feeling threatened, Gordon alerted security as the man continued to yell and make gestures at them.
And that's when my wife, as she's standing behind me, says, "Shauna, that's not water, that is spit. You can see the phlegm."
Gordon shared this photo of their jacket. After multiple conversations with workers, they tell us Moda staff eventually found the couple new seats in another section. They say the man eluded security for much of the first quarter before being escorted out of the arena. 24 hours later, Gordon is still shaken and believes Moda Center staff dropped the ball in handling the situation. They also question whether they feel comfortable returning to Fire games or renewing their season tickets.
And I'm a queer non-binary person of color living in Portland, Oregon. My existence, my personal choices that I made infuriated someone to the point where they did something that was so degrading to me, to spit on me, to yell something so violent. That needs to be addressed.
A Portland police spokesperson tells us they are investigating the incident, saying the Bias Crimes Unit will be doing follow-up.
And we have reached out to the Portland Fire Organization and have not yet heard back. Well, turning now to wildfire coverage, and this new video showing a brush fire that sparked today along I-5 near the Walmart in Grants Pass, prompting level 3 evacuations in the east part of town. Josephine County Emergency Management has set up a shelter at the Edgewater Christian Fellowship. Now, it comes as firefighters have made progress in containing some of the larger fires, like the Bench Fire, which has burned much of Warm Springs this past weekend. And as Jake Holder explains, crews are dealing with what's being called a particularly dangerous situation by meteorologists that could threaten the progress.
The Bench Fire has burned more than 67,000 acres in and around Warm Springs, and while firefighters seem to have gotten more of a handle on it, Saturday's weather has created a, quote, particularly dangerous situation.
What that means is that you have your standard red flag warning that we've had for decades, but there was really never any level above that for the red flag warnings that really stand out. The idea here is something that you wouldn't expect to see every year. You might not see another one for another 3 or 5 years on average. So that's kind of the benchmark and the threshold that we're looking at.
National Weather Service incident meteorologist trainee Dylan Flynn has been monitoring the fire weather here in Oregon and explains what prompted them to issue the particularly dangerous situation.
It's really wind driven. So we look at this cold front coming in. We're expecting strong winds initially out of the west, 20 miles per hour, gusts to 30, and those will gradually shift more out of the north as the evening goes on.
Combined with the hot and dry fire conditions, the winds make for extreme fire weather, increasing the likelihood of fire spread and new fire starts.
The biggest concern when we do a particularly dangerous situation is for firefighter safety. That's our primary focus, is that when you're fighting the fires, these conditions can be dangerous and even deadly for firefighters on the line.
So Flynn and the other meteorologists briefed the firefighters going out on the line Saturday on what they could expect.
And we explained exactly what the timing of the winds would be, the expected direction, so everybody was aware. And then once the firefighters go out there, they just maintain their typical safety rules, which is that post lookouts or monitoring the weather from an exposed location where they can communicate, have good communication with base, have a good escape route, and identified safety zones that they can fall back to if those conditions become dangerous.
Thankfully, Flynn says these conditions should let up overnight.
And then as we get into Sunday morning, sun comes up, it's actually going to be quite cold, right? We have a cold front, so you could expect it would be cold behind it, and that helps. That brings up the humidity, which makes it a little harder for the fire to burn. And so we get a little bit of a break on Sunday and Monday.
Jake Holter, KGW News.
And we're going to see high fire danger for the early part of next week with the return of summer heat. Meteorologist Joe Ranieri is here to let us know how hot things are going to be getting. And Joe, it's not just the heat you're tracking.
No, I'm tracking the smoke that's going to be kind of just pouring in by late tomorrow night and especially by Monday morning. I'll talk about that in a second. But the red flag warning has expired throughout what was practically the east side of the state a couple minutes ago. But we're still looking at some windy conditions tonight. The Dows, you're seeing gusts come in about 30 miles an hour. They'll die down tonight, like you just heard that meteorologist say. But going into the afternoon tomorrow, they pick up a little bit. Near the Dows, those gusts could be anywhere from 30 to 35 miles an hour, and up and down the I-5 corridor, we could be seeing some gusts here and there, maybe 15, 20 miles an hour, same as the coast. But you'll notice by tomorrow evening, those gusts pick up again along the beaches and throughout parts of the Dalles. The Dalles could be seeing gusts throughout part of the late morning, early part of the afternoon, anywhere from 30 to 40 miles an hour. So that's the smoke forecast tomorrow, and then by Monday morning, it's going to pour into here. There's going to be a shift in the wind direction. So we've been relatively lucky in the metro area in terms of seeing thick smoke. That will not be the case into Monday, potentially a little bit longer. I'll talk more about the heat that's on the way, which will be another concern for our wildfires coming up in just a few minutes.
Yes, it will. All right, Joe, thanks so much. In an update, FEMA says it's approved federal funding to help battle the Roe Creek complex fire that's burning in Central Oregon. Previously, FEMA said the fire did not meet its strict statutory threshold at the time of Governor Tina Kotek's request. The money was approved on Friday after both Democrat and Republican lawmakers pressed the agency to approve the funding. In the latest update from state fire officials, the Roe Creek complex fire has burned more than 310,000 acres and is 57% contained. And a moment of hope as crews battling the Roe Creek complex fire. Firefighters say this home in the Mill Creek Road area near Prineville is only standing thanks to the owner's preparations before they evacuated. They say the two-story home was being threatened by a fast-moving grass fire with flames already on the deck of that home. Crews noticed the owner had left behind a water tender, pump, and a hose, which allowed them to attack the blaze quickly. They add that the homeowner taking time to remove flammable materials around their home was also critical to knocking the fire back.
This is a great example of what happens when we have a couple things working in our favor. When we have a home that has defensible space, where it has vegetation cleared away from the house that moderates fire behavior as it gets closer to it. So we just probably had embers on the deck rather than a full flame front engaging on the house.
Fire officials say it highlights the importance of being aware and prepared when you live in a fire-prone area.